Welcome to Executive Access, your home for real talk with industry leaders. I am your host, Jamie Tazi. Today, I am speaking with Maggie Driscoll, Chief People and Culture Officer at Blackbaud. Maggie is passionate about the HR function and has grown her career entirely focused on it. Most recently, before Blackbaud, she was the Managing Director of Global HR at Bank of New York Mellon. I started my conversation with Maggie about how she transitioned Blackbaud to a remote-first flexible culture after the COVID pandemic. Her work and Blackbaud's work has received national attention. We discussed the pros and cons and what other senior leaders can be thinking about if they are struggling with reestablishing office norms in a post-pandemic work environment. We discussed the stages that leaders go through as they grow their careers from first-line leader to broad business leader. And we have an interesting conversation about the employee deal and whether that has changed in the 30 years since I entered the workforce. Maggie is a principal leader who truly brings her authentic self to work with her. And we talked about how she does that and words of encouragement for other leaders working on doing the same. Let's dive in. Maggie, welcome to the Executive Access. I am so happy that you're here today.
I am super excited to be here, Jamie. We've been talking about it for a while, and it's here.
Well, I've been chasing you down. I mean, your schedule is really difficult, of course, as a senior leader and officer at Blackbaud. But I was persistent. I'm like, I have to have Maggie on ever since I first met you. So you're the Chief People and Culture Officer at Blackbaud,
Yes.
which is a large technology company based in Charleston, South Carolina. And we're going to get into all kinds of stuff. But first, I'd love to start by asking my growth mindset question. What are you doing these days to learn and grow?
So learning and growing has to be every day. And so I do it two ways. And I read the cover of every newspaper, not always the second or third page,
Interesting.
but try to do a cover sweep
Huh.
and then decide what articles are important for me or things that I think I should know. And then I do a double click.
Nice.
And then my evening ritual is I learn from the community, which is all via LinkedIn. So seeing how people are talking about what's happening in their space, in their career, and then reading so many great stories and also a couple of podcasts as well. So it's all great.
Excellent. Okay, so you're a big reader.
I do.
Oh, very good. Very good. I have to admit, I have not really picked up a newspaper in quite a long time. Maybe I need to add that to my repertoire. So very good. So you have been, I've wanted to have a very senior HR operator on this podcast right from the beginning. So I'm thrilled to have you here. You've had a great career. Your entire career has been HR. It's your passion, I believe.
It is.
Prior to Blackbaud, you were at Bank of New York Mellon, the managing director of global HR. And lots before that. How did you, just curious, get involved with HR? What was why do you call it your passion today?
So it was my undergrad, so business communication, human resources, and knowing, and probably overstated, I knew I wanted to not be an accountant. I knew I needed a role that had financial acumen in it, but I wanted to be in front and not necessarily behind a computer, which is ironic where I am today. But so human resources became where I studied. And then from my first job, I was hooked.
Amazing.
Loved
I
it.
can't even remember when I was in college that I really understood about the function of HR. And by the way, my son is crushing it in accounting, so much so that I said, hey, maybe you should make that your second major. He's finance. And he came home this weekend and I was like, are you going to do that? He goes, I just don't like it. I'm really good at it, but I just don't like it. And I was like, okay, good. I'm all for that. Follow your passion.
Yes.
You've received a lot of accolades locally and I think nationally for how you led and with the rest of the team led at Blackbaud around the COVID transitions. Yes. Including an eventual move where now Blackbaud has, I think you call it a remote first culture. Is that right?
First flexible. Yes.
Remote first flexible culture.
Yes.
So, many CEOs that I work with are struggling with the return to the office, dilemma post-COVID. I'm curious for you to walk us through how you came to that decision of remote first, flexible, and where you stand today with that.
Happy to. Let me first say, Blackbaud was an in-person
I
culture.
remember that.
So my position when I accepted it, I relocated from Massachusetts to Charleston, South Carolina. So, uh, number one, within those 90 days, that was January of 2020, March 11th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the world starts to shut down. But very quickly, we realized at Blackbaud that our talent, our people, were able to quickly pivot to support our customers, their communities, and each other. So, first and foremost, Blackbaud continued to thrive.
Hmm.
Also, equally important, a leadership team and a CEO, Mike Giannone, who was opened to, again, fully involved ensuring Blackbaud was going to continue during COVID, but also open to, wow, this is working. And being open to seeing the facts and seeing the results and how we did continue to thrive during remote work at Blackbaud.
It's so interesting. So I really thought that you just said, okay, so we just made this decision. But as we were talking prior, it was more about what you were seeing. Can you say more about that? Because I think there's this
Yes.
debate. Is it better, quote unquote, better to remain remote entirely, to come back in the office entirely, to go hybrid? And I'm curious how you guys went through that decision making.
So it is a great question. We always intended to go back.
Hmm.
We wanted to do it when it was safe to do it from a well-being perspective for our employees and their respective families. That being said, as the time got longer and the world wasn't fully opening up, but seeing how our employees were continuing to thrive. There's so many amazing stories during it, but if I think about one of our customers, Cincinnati Zoo, and everyone today knows who Fiona is. Not that you didn't know who she was before. She's got a great friend, a hippopotamus. Those zoos came online through technology, and families at home could continue to experience what was happening at a zoo. What's a zookeeper do, right? If you think about that, the world had shut down, but Blackbaud, that innovation with our customer base created moments that matter, that continue to see the value of what we need to do to support our customer base. So you asked, what is different? We did, and not dissimilar to other companies, we continued to listen to our employees. We did pulse checks, and we talked about going back hybrid. We talked about flex. And with time, our employees continue to say, we would like to stay remote. And during that period of time, so between March, we did not declare remote first or remote flexible until November of 21. So during that time, we invested, in apps so that we could have people could assign a desk, all the traditional elements that many companies were doing to help get employees back.
So it sounds like you were, didn't go into it making a decision right from the beginning about coming back or not. You were, during that time in 2020, making it as productive as possible for your team. And you said listening through the pulse surveys. And as you moved forward and we're coming to like a long-term decision, it sounds like you were just saying, okay, well, what's our team telling us, and what kind of experience are we having, and where do we want to go from here? Is that right?
It is right. And it's not only, was it every employee? No, because nothing is going to be every employee. But yes, our employees were not only telling us, they were showing up, improving. that the boundaries of a zip code weren't going to be what made them successful and how they could deliver at Blackbaud.
So I know that at least some of my clients and some other leaders are still grappling with us, senior leaders, about, hybrid, bringing people back, getting resistance. Tell me about the good that you saw come out of, the remote first, flexible,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the challenges that you had overcome in case others are thinking about moving along the same path.
Happy to. So some of the challenges is our people still want human connection,
Yeah.
right? They still want to be engaged. So, and again, whether that is in their community doing a volunteer day, nonprofit, but they also want to see their colleagues and leadership. So, as Blackbaud continued to learn, we rolled out more programs. So, regional connection gatherings where leadership around the world goes to a location, and again, a leader may be there for a conference, a customer meeting, or meeting, going to our UK office. So what they do is they make the time and they spend time in the community with our employees, and the volunteer, and then usually a lunch. So that's one thing Blackbaud added, so that our employees know that we come to them, we travel, but we bring them together, which again is aligned to our mission, our values, again, our purpose of who Blackbaud is. But as you talk about other employers, that the decisions they need to make, it definitely is not a one size fits all. And I'd be the first to say, obviously hospital settings, right? I mean,
Sure.
you think about, I just talked about the zoos. I mean, there needs to be a zookeeper. I don't think that job can be remote. So there is an appreciation and understanding of why organizations need to be back, whether that is a hybrid schedule or fully returning to the office. And as I think about leaders and what they need to think about, again, Mike Giannoni's openness to support remote shows up every week. He has a Monday morning meeting with approximately the top 175-ish leaders in the company as a pulse check. It is to see how they're
Hmm.
doing, what's going on, but also business updates. What do they need to know? What do they need to take back to empower their people leaders in the next moment?
Nice.
He's never stopped. And we
Nice.
started that in March of 2020. That's a weekly call, and everyone shows up. I mean, so again, you have to walk the talk. So he does that in a remote environment. Even if he comes in the office, Mike would still do it remote in the same setting so that everyone is experiencing in the same way. Because I do think when you look at hybrid, unless the hardest part about it, or from my lens, some of the harder things about it is you hear there are individuals who do go back in and they spend their whole day on Teams or Zoom or WebEx with a headset on. So you may physically be in a building, but your experience in what you're doing is global by design as we all continue to be global.
There's a HR leader that I really respect. Her name is Katie. And she, told me last year, she's like, Jamie, I don't believe in hybrid. She went, she's like, you know what? If you want to be in office, that's great. If you want to be optimized for remote, that's great. But if you say you're hybrid, all of a sudden you're not actively optimizing for any scenario. If you say you're in office, maybe the challenges that you need to optimize for are around flexibility, for productivity, for individuals, right? If you say you're remote, the things you have to solve for are, for example, what you're describing, which is we need to have personal contact and be intentional about that. I thought that was a really interesting, I hadn't thought of it the way she shared that. She was kind of going hard. And I don't know if that's 100% accurate, that hybrid is wrong for every company, but it is the intentionality and the focus that you can place by picking a way that you work and optimizing for the challenges that each model has? I was curious what you thought about that.
So I think hybrid, I do believe can work, but the parameters, the guidance around it, hybrid doesn't work. I think if you're on a computer and on Teams all day, but if you're using it for those connection meetings and in-person dialogues, whiteboarding
Intentional
something,
about it.
intentional
Sure.
about it, and you choose the days where the teams, it's the most effective and everyone is doing it, I believe it can work. But that model, I think, is harder and it takes more effort and, to your point, intentionality
Right.
to
Than
make
just
it happen.
optimizing.
Right.
Interesting. All right. Thank you. Did I hear you correctly, by the way? Did you start at Blackbaud in January of 2020?
Yes, 2020.
Okay. So I have to ask this question. You move,
Yes.
you uproot your life. You move
Yes.
from Massachusetts to Charleston.
Yes.
You arrive in January. That was right as people were starting to think like, is something up, but you didn't quite know.
Right.
And you're ready for your, I'm sure, first 90 days of integration to
Yes.
learn the company. And then this massive change and impact happens. I'm so curious, what were some of the leadership principles that you drew upon you got thrown right into the fire. Talk to me about what that experience was like and how you were able to be so successful and, so quickly in a new environment.
So, first of all, yes, there was no playbook. So, number one, thrown into the fire with the rest of the leadership team and probably one of the best HR teams I've ever had the privilege and honor to work with. And from day one, we would get on calls, keep lines open. What do we need to do? What do we need to think about? What are we missing? And we continued to learn from each other, listen in the community of HR professionals. I would also say, during at least my experience, was seeing HR professionals come together.
Yes.
We came together not about competition, not about you shouldn't be looking at my talent. We came together in a manner that was, how can we help each other, our employers, our people, in our communities, when there truly was no playbook. So it was a constant learning, listening. And I would also say, no, it didn't matter whether you were at Blackbaud with under 3,000 employees or you were talking to one of the big firms with 30,000 employees. The impact was real. What we were thinking and how we were going to move forward, everyone had an equal vote, if that makes sense, in working to solve.
That's great. So in some ways, while I don't think you would have asked for that situation,
Oh, no.
being able to
Yes.
just jump right in and be part of a team quickly probably was the best way you could have ramped up into a company.
And the other thing, I also wondered, wow, are they sure they still need me? So I actually went through, who knew what was going to happen in COVID? But the leadership team, my team, it was unwavering. We're here together and it's one team, because I wanted to be thoughtful. I didn't know the 3,000 employees.
That's right.
I had met a handful in my first 90 days. So I wanted to make sure if there was something different, but
Well, I mean, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. It's kind of like, here we are with this, people looking to the leadership team, and as the head of people and culture looking to you, and you needed to step up and just kudos to you, because everything that's been written about you and how Blackbaud weathered the storm and really brought innovation is, I think, a testament to your leadership, and you called out Mike and others as well.
yes.
I wanted to shift a little bit and talk about leadership stages. So I have this idea that's been percolating in my brain, and now I get to ask an actual HR professional what you think about this. So as I go through my coaching practice, I think about probably 3 or 4 big leadership stages. The first is you're an individual contributor at an organization. I always say significant opportunity to lead from a self-leadership, influence leadership perspective. Then you become a first-line manager. That stage is all about, okay, how do I coach others and learn how to coach? Next leadership stage, second line manager, leading other leaders. And then the next stage, sort of broad business leadership and how do you drive organizational impact, right? I'm curious, what do you think about those stages? Are they the right ones? And I'd love to have a conversation with you about what do you see as the growth needs to go from one stage to the next. So I know I just asked you a big question, but if you're okay with that model of the stages, I'd love to kind of walk you through that.
So 100% good with the stages. I would also say those stages became very real at Blackbaud because when Blackbaud was an in-person culture, to be a manager, you needed to be, one of the criteria was to be at one of our satellite locations.
Oh, interesting.
So when we went remote first flexible, when you think about those stages, we had a duty and a responsibility to our people. How do we help them be better in the next moment? How do we help them learn at that individual contributor perspective? Do they have the desire? Do they have the aspiration to take that next line manager? So in those elements, the focus on career conversation, having check-ins, really having our current people leaders ask their employees, what are they looking for? What do they need? And do they have the desire? Because it's also okay to say, I'm really comfortable. I want to continue to grow and thrive, but I want to continue in an individual contributor perspective.
Yes.
100% fine. And we should applaud that. Those that wanted to become that next layer, whether it was team leader, first layer manager, we offered and empowered online learning, 24/7 courses and curriculum that everyone had the opportunity to do. We offered, again, early days, but people could volunteer to help out in projects. People could help out to show whether they wanted to own from a piece of a bigger project, but again, giving those opportunities to individuals. And I would also say, again, I'm looking at it from a Blackbaud perspective, but everything I'm saying can go to any company or any organization. Blackbaud, 1 in 7 of our employees are on a nonprofit board. So that doesn't mean they're a manager, individual. It is just a stat at Blackbaud. So when you think about getting those real life practical experiences, adding in the ability then to take small steps, and then employees being able to raise their hand.
Amazing. That you brought up one thing that I think I was going to ask you, what do you think are the biggest things that people need to learn at every stage? From what I see, when you become a first line manager, your first time you become an actual people manager, the biggest misstep that I see is that people tend to think that it's all about the job. They've usually gotten that job if they've been promoted up because they've been really good at the thing. A really good salesperson or a really good marketer. Now you're promoted up to lead the team, and the focus is all about on the plan for the business, right? Which is great. Like, that's necessary. Yes, do that.
Right.
But I feel like the growth area is what you just said, which is getting to know your people,
yes,
understanding where they want to grow, where they need to grow for their role, and coaching them up to drive that bigger impact in the organization and helping them get to hopefully that next level if they've got, some desires. Do you agree with that? Is that?
I do. I do.
That is a skill set that people tend to overlook because they've spent their career so far so focused on like doing the thing, and they need to shift to that people orientation.
And I think the shift is sometimes what people don't realize, how much of the job is about the people, is about the open, direct dialogue, helping someone understand what good and great looks like, understanding the opportunities and how they could show up differently, or how do you show up as a people leader in a remote setting, right? There's just so many elements to it. And that component, some people, when they get to the manager level, they're also okay going back to being that SME expert, right? It's not
that
easy.
Happens.
It's
Absolutely.
not easy.
I had to learn at that level how to give good constructive feedback, how to be, because I always like to make people feel good, but then I had to realize that, being kind to somebody is, helping them understand where they're missing the mark or where they can improve. Um, and that's a tough job, like that
Right.
first level. All right, let's talk about second level. So
Okay.
you've been a great manager, and now you're getting promoted to a manager of managers, right?
Right.
What do you think are some of the big things, or one big thing that somebody has to learn in order to get to that level?
So, manager of managers, and it's something that I even continue to struggle. You have to let go. You have to
Oh boy.
empower your leaders who now have proven themselves. They're managing other managers and their staffs. You can't be always at the 10-foot level. You got to let them in yourself move to helping move the business faster, help empower your senior managers to move with the organization as they're continuing to help support and grow their team, but that ability to let go, which is not always easy.
It's not, I'm laughing because I had to learn this too. And I would say it's about amplifying your impact through others and letting them. I think about I had a mental map in my head is, okay, my job is to keep you, like, give you the guardrails.
Yes.
Here's the guardrails, but let you decide what lane you want to be in and how you're going to get there specifically, right? I did my homework. I heard that
Okay.
you do a really good job of this around empowerment. Can you talk a little bit about how you empower your team?
So, first of all, again, having a fantastic team is a big piece of it. But my team is empowered. They have the ability to execute, drive business decisions with one caveat, just one little asterisk. I don't like surprises unless they come in a nice blue box and that certain color ribbon. And what I mean by that is, again, when I say even moving faster, helping the organization as a member of the executive team at Blackbaud isn't just because I sit in a people and culture seat. I'm a member of the leadership team. And we, as we're moving, I have to empower and allow the people and culture team to do what they do best. And the amount of work, if I think about all the pieces, they have to be empowered to deliver on our commitments, our AOP, our LRP. And if I get in the weeds on every element, some of my team may say I still do on occasion, is I stop. I can stop innovation. I can stop the flow of work. So really, I practice to take a step back and empower them to do what they need to do.
And the no surprises, how do you ensure that you get no surprises? Except for the Tiffany box.
Yes.
Pretty ones.
I don't know. You can never ensure, right? What it is because each of the leadership team that I work with, many of them are SMEs, so they're in their space. So they're doing 80% of what they do and what they're driving day in and day out is what their role is. On the parameter, um, you know, for my role, I think, when we're hiring a leader, I'm part of that process. So there's number one. And leader to me is, member of the GMT. I talked about that weekly
Yep.
group. Also, if we have an employee who, because they've been coached and they've had, um, you know, the right coaching moments and it's just not working and they are going to leave our organization, I want to make sure I know that. Because to me, those are two elements. The onboarding and the offboarding is something that I believe I should be aware of because it's core.
Interesting. So putting a lot of, I think I know what you mean on the onboarding. I used to, probably relative to my peers when I was a senior leader at Microsoft, get very involved in the hiring.
Yes.
At one point at a certain level, I was asking to be the final interview for a finalist candidate. And I know that all my peers weren't investing that time, but my thought process was like, this is one of the most important things we're going to do is bring somebody into the organization. And are we, Do we understand why we're hiring the person? Is it the right fit both ways? So I think I know what you mean on that. But
Right.
talk to me about the offboarding. I don't know that I was always as involved in the offboarding decisions.
So the offboarding, it's again ensuring that we're treating our employees with empathy, with care,
Yeah.
and again, that we have helped them understand the path. So if I said when we talk about that first line manager and they're having their check-ins and they're helping them understand what they're thriving in and maybe what they're missing. That also goes to the no surprises, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
from a performance management standpoint, um, but that may be a component of it, but we also want to help that employee maybe find that next opportunity. And maybe there was something within that role that wasn't there, it didn't allow them the ability to shine, if that makes sense.
No, that's great. I love that that's a core value and focus of yours. So around these second line managers, here's what I'm pulling out.
Yes.
And I love, okay, so these second line managers, you've now become a second line manager and you might think, great, I just have this bigger business remit and time to dive into the business. Yes, you need to
Yes.
own a business and know your numbers and do all that. From a people leadership perspective, which I feel like is the bulk of it or should be the bulk of the focus, amplify your impact through other leaders. You talked a little bit about having a great team. And
Yes.
so I would say that I'm curious what you think. Really understanding what the capabilities of your team members are. What do they each bring to the table? Where are some of their gaps so that you can coach at the right level, each one of them? But giving the clear direction, empowering them,
Yes.
and then here comes my guardrails.
All
So one
right.
of the things that you were talking about was no surprises. To me, that's
Right.
a guardrail.
It
That
is.
is a way that you're telling your team, here are the types of things that I'm expecting you to communicate with me in advance so that we don't have surprises. Go forth and do your thing and be empowered, but no surprises. You need to pull me in. Do I have that right?
You have it right, but the reality is life is a surprise every day, right? So
So it keeps it interesting.
it keeps it interesting. So also, I'm open and direct with the leadership team, no surprises, but surprises happen. But because we have this rapport
Yes.
and we're sharing information, and sometimes it's a debate, and sometimes it's, wait a minute, did you think about this? And then vice versa. Hey, Maggie, what about this? We get to better decisions for the company.
Yes.
Just because where I sit in an org chart doesn't mean I always have the right decision,
That's right.
right? And the no surprise element keeps me on the pulse of the business, which is also what I said I struggle with, right? I can't be always at that 10 feet, but the no surprises, one of the reasons I'm in the career is I love all aspects of it. So it also keeps me knowing what the team is doing, the value they're bringing. So it also feeds that hunger that I have as well.
So here's what's really interesting. Here's where now we're going to shift to the broad business leader. Okay, this is what
Okay.
you are today, right? You are not a second line leader. You're a broad business leader as an officer of the company, and to me, that's about like making sure that the right conditions are in place for the organization, the right cultural components. I heard you talk about leading with empathy
Yes.
and making sure that, particularly when it comes to an offboarding for a person, which might be their decision, it might not be their
Yes,
decision,
correct.
is treated well and with empathy. So my guess is that cultural tenet is deeply ingrained with your team and throughout because you're making it such a priority. So this, but one thing that you really surprised me when I became a
Yes.
broad business leader is exactly where you were just talking about. I really love the context of things. I love to know what's happening on the ground
Yes.
floor. What that, it's why I always loved, talking to a customer or going out and meeting the team. But what I wasn't prepared for when I became a broad business leader was how few opportunities I had to really day in and day out fed that context,
Yes.
right? So here I was making all these big decisions and I was craving that context, And so I to me, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't
Right.
prepared for that because I just wasn't prepared for how my view changed. I don't know. Did that happen to you as well?
It did, and I think that's how the no surprises
Right.
came in because it does. I resonate with it, and it is, I think it's a struggle for many because, well, I shouldn't say many.
No, I think many. I mean, in my coaching practice, I think that when someone shifts over to that broad business leader, or they get promoted up to the CEO role, they're struggling with letting go because what's really happening is that they're missing the context
Correct.
for all the good decision making. So as you pivot and really excel in that broad business leadership, my take is you better go out there and seek out that information proactively. Otherwise, you'll be living in your ivory tower.
Mm-hmm.
But don't let the mistake happen that you're still holding on tight to the reins, because then you won't be in your view. Right? It's a really tricky tension line.
Agree. And one of the things that I said to you when we first started is reading the front pages of the paper and LinkedIn at night. And I say that they are two anchors in how I look to make sure that I'm staying present, I'm staying connected, but also, and my team does this all the time, we share articles, we share some of the, do we need to think about this? How are we moving on this? And many times my team will say, Maggie, we're already ahead of you. We're 3 months into that. It's not a surprise. It's because they're working on something. Again, you have the swim lanes, you have the barriers of where you can go on both sides. So it's the continuous learning and sharing. But you are right. You have to be able to get it outside at times in your community. Yes.
Amazing. Okay, so those are the things to be thinking about as you move up in your career. And no surprise, it's all anchored on people. And, what about the decision between bringing people into the organization, sort of fresh perspective, like you were brought in from a different perspective coming from the bank, and promoting from within? What are some things that leaders should be thinking about around making that decision? Is it time to promote somebody from within for this position, or is it time to bring in some fresh perspective from the outside?
I think you always have to have both. And it's ensuring that we are aware. So what I would say is it starts with succession planning, right? So as companies are really thinking about their future, whether it's 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 plus, thinking about who is that next person to take that role? Who are you helping? And this goes back to where you are in the management chain. Who are you helping in the process to be ready when and if that role opens up? So some of it is timing. And some of it now is I think about Blackbaud. Historically, we have had a very, very strong split of internal mobility and external hiring. I would also say the world, as we think about innovation, AI, AI, what, October of 23, true, like you started to hear a lot more about it. But we're helping our employees. We're educating them on what it is. There's trainings they can take. So you empower your employees to come with you on the journey, so that they can continue when and if that role is opened to think about it. But I also believe, an external perspective is always good.
Absolutely.
Too. It's that's why I said it's a balance. It's a balance of both.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about helping develop people, as these new external factors come into play, or helping them become more and more marketable. Hopefully that means you can retain them. They say, wow, this organization is really helping me learn and grow. I've got clarity and from my manager and my great conversations, if they're good coaches, so I can get where I'm going. I see some fear, some leaders in other organizations, a little bit worried about, like, from a retention, like I have to keep everybody here. And I see it as more like an open-handed thing, right? Which is, if we do the right things, if we're helping people grow, if we're coaching them, if we're creating clarity around where they can grow in the organization, retention follows. And sometimes we're going to lose some great people because there will just be an external opportunity the same way you're creating for yourself, for Blackbaud and your company as well. But in general, that focus on the people and growing. So I loved hearing you say that the focus is around growing people always.
Right. And it's growing. And we will lose, and we do lose talent, But you asked me about before offboarding. Losing talent is hard,
Yes.
but losing fantastic talent is more painful.
Yes.
But also, you have to let them go in order for them to continue to thrive. Blackbaud has a fantastic, we call it boomerangs. We can let people go, right? But how you treat them on the offboarding and how you recognize them. And sometimes it's celebrating, which is still hard,
Sure.
but the door is open for them to come back. And many do.
That's great. Yeah, I just was talking to one of my clients, had exactly that kind of person left. It was painful, it hurt. There was a boomerang 2 years later.
Right.
The person came back stronger. They had gotten
Right.
some more interesting, unique experiences, but I think they also realized, wow, you know what? I had it pretty good here. And the
Yes.
organization was able to welcome that person back, and it was a good experience. Let me ask you about just moving in a little different direction. I'm curious what you think about whether the employee deal has changed. I was reflecting, you know, and I was my son and my sister entering the workforce. Um, when I was, you know, right out of college, starting a career, it was like, put your head down, work hard, pay your dues is something that people said to me that I heard in my head. I really, you know, agreed with all of that. Do you think that the deal has changed for this, you know, incoming crop of, you know, early in career leaders or even senior leaders that come into your organization? Has anything changed since, you know, gosh, I'm afraid to tell you how long it's been since I entered the workforce, 30 some years ago.
So I think it has changed. And I will, even talking to my nieces, you know, again, they want a career, they want to continue to thrive, but they have more boundaries. When you said, you know, heads down, do the work, make a difference, and people will see you, right? Because it was what you wanted to be seen
That's right.
and visible.
Yep.
So that desire, I believe, is still there, but the promise is also, but at 5:30, I'm doing my commitment to myself and well-being, maybe yoga, or my commitment is XYZ. So the relationship I am seeing with this current generation is they do have more commitments, more passions, but they want it all, and they make it work. They put the guardrails up themselves. Number one, when I think about hiring uh, at that manager or senior manager director level, I don't see that changing. What I see is their ability to, if we've gone external for people to come in and truly make material difference, you know, looking at our change agility, our ability to um, take the advice and wisdom they bring in. But the our employees, I believe, since probably more since COVID, but they tell us what they think and they share what they're looking for and what they want. Probably more reticent than they did before.
I've had to catch myself as
Mhm.
a, you know, turning 50 this year kind of leader. I have had to catch myself a little bit, um, getting my judgy head on, like, oh, I can't believe that person thought that way or was being that way. And try to go back to principles of what we've been talking about, which is I think the great leaders, they understand, they get to know their people, they
Mhm.
understand what really drives them. And the best ones are connecting where the person is and what motivates them to how they can fulfill their, you know, aspirations at this organization from a retention perspective.
Yes.
And if we can fundamentally focus on that, then I know I've had to, you know, shift my way just because I, you know, had to pay my dues or whatever. I would think about like working hard looks different. The way we work may look different, but
Correct.
those things need to be the same, right?
Agree.
Okay.
And and the other thing is, it's helping the employees, every person understand the value they have in delivering to the goals of the company. We all have the same goals. It's just a matter of ensuring it resonates from employee 1 to employee 26.
Right. How does
Right?
my work matter?
How does my work matter?
Amazing.
And that, I think, is more important, and the employee population is looking to ensure they have that connection when they are making decisions about employers.
Yes. Amazing. Okay, terrific. I am wanting to focus on you now, which I know
Okay.
usually my guests, when I'm like, well, tell me about you. It's like, no, I don't want to talk about me. But what leadership principles for you personally would you say have served you well as you've grown in your career to a very, very senior leader across multiple companies?
So I would say, I'm not sure if, well, one of my principles is be my authentic self.
Mm.
Second one is I don't have all the answers. Be okay to acknowledge if you make a mistake. It's not easy. And bring others with you. So I will ask a question if I don't know, and whether it's an acronym or something. If I don't know something, I do double click, and I want that person, whoever it is, to be able to help me, no matter where they are in the org chart. So I'm one of these people that learning is every day. So my style is, if I think employee A has it, I just go on Teams, send them a note, ask them if they have 5 minutes, got a quick question. So I'm not afraid to ask.
So that's actually good. I'm going to ask you about authenticity because
Mhm.
I was speaking to a group of, early in career tech leaders several months ago, and somebody during Q&A, one of the women asked me, Jamie, you seem to have such an authenticity about you. Like, what advice do you have for leading authentically? And you said leading authentically. I was so excited for the question. I was like, I can't wait to answer this
Yes.
question. And then I went to answer and I'm like, wow, this is much more difficult to answer than I thought. So because I was stumped, I'm going to now try to stump you. Now I'm
Yes, you
curious
will
what you
stump
think.
me.
Like when you leading authentically, for me came over time, but I had to figure that out. When you say leading authentically, any advice for those that are trying to find their voice or want to lead authentically? Like what does that mean to you? Any
So so authentically for me is you can have back-to-back meetings. Usually presentations come out, let's just say 72 hours before, right? Authentically will say, I will tell someone, I need to let you know I've not gone through the material. Your time is valuable. I am good to do a page turn, but I'm also will be flexible if if you need me to go through it to make this the most productive meeting, let's do that. So
just being real
just being
about
real.
where you are.
Right.
And just saying, hey, there's, maybe if I had gotten it a week ago, there would be no excuse for me having to go for it.
Correct.
I wonder when people say fake it till you make it,
Right.
that statement has always bothered me. And for some reason that popped in my head and I'm like, I think that's why. It's because if you focus on faking it to you might say, sure, yeah, I've read that. And you start to kind of go through and you're trying to catch up, right?
Right.
So one, it's about being real about just every situation and what's going on and owning the fact that I'm glad to hear that Blackbaud has fire drills sometimes too and last minute things like that, which isn't just my world. Fast and Furious company. Yeah, exactly. Okay, good.
No.
Anything else come to mind around authentic?
I would say that my team knows me well, and they can also say my facial expressions.
Do you not have a poker face?
I thought I did, and then someone will send a team, and they said, "I'm going to follow up with you on that," or they saw something, and but again. Yes, I'm not sure you want to play poker with me. I probably wouldn't do so well.
I think that's great. My friend Nina, who came on the podcast, I think she said it best. She's like, when I see you acting the same way, when you're out with your friends as you are with me, or I see you act consistently over time, that builds trust. And I was reflecting on that and I was like, yeah, and it's much easier just to be yourself than to try to remember and play a role of something you're supposed to be, right?
Right.
That took me a long time though. I felt like I was playing a role for a long time. I was looking towards people above me and trying to act the way they were acting. You might have gotten to that point where you are today a lot faster than me, but I would encourage for people to really lean into that authentic way of being.
I think it is the easiest way. And when someone says, well, what are we going to say? I'm like, the easiest thing to say is the truth.
Yeah.
We can overcomplicate it, but just let's say what we actually mean.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right. Well, I have already, this hour flew by, so we're getting really close. Are there any books or frameworks or things that, are you've loved over time that you want to share with my audience here?
Yeah. So I'm probably a little bit of a nerd on this one.
I love nerds.
Yes.
I am a nerd too. That's what I call myself.
And it started in college, and I still do it today. I love Harvard Business Reviews on company issues or people matters, and truly reading what happened, when it happened, and thinking about
Like the case study,
like a
like the
case,
whole study?
the whole case study. Yes. So it goes back to just knowing, would I have done it the same way? Would I have done it differently? And it's, many times I would have done it. I'm like, oh, I would have been really wrong here. Or then you say, oh, I would have been right. But again, it's that continuous learning. But it's probably also why I like the show Law and Order too. It's this kind of
I love Law and Order.
Law and Order.
And by the way, I don't mind making mistakes. I'm a huge growth mindset person. That's not true. I don't like making mistakes, but I'm used to them. But I'd much rather learn from other people's mistakes. So in your honor, I'm going to link to a couple HBR articles in the show notes so that people can listen to it. Amazing. All right. So one final question for you.
Okay.
If you could wrap by just giving one piece of leadership advice, what would that be?
Never be too big to realize why you came into the profession to begin with.
I'm fighting the urge to ask a follow-on question to that because it's so good. Does that happen?
It does. I mean, I think it becomes, it's going to be your core, your principles, everything we've talked about today, being your authentic self, understanding why someone's in the role they're in and why people care. Just remember.
And do you think that if you can hang on to that, no matter how senior you get, do you think you can hang on to joy a little bit longer?
I do.
I do too.
I do.
Great advice.
Thank you.
Maggie, thank you so much for coming on board. Man, I didn't realize that you came to Blackbaud in such a pivotal time. They're so fortunate to have you, and I so appreciate you coming today to speak with me and our listeners.
Thank you very much, and this has been great.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please continue to join us for insider access to executive leadership.